When Nicole Kidman finally opened up about her divorces from Tom Cruise and Keith Urban, her answer was not what most people expected. After keeping much of her private life guarded for years, Nicole admitted that going through divorce once did not make the second time any easier. Her explanation was surprisingly simple: it's all new every time. 5 words, but they say a lot about love, heartbreak, and the strange way life can change without warning. So why did her first divorce fail to prepare her for the second? And what does that reveal about the woman Nicole has become? For years, Nicole Kidman's love life has been watched almost as closely as her movies. Her marriage to Tom Cruise made her one of Hollywood's most recognizable young wives. Later, her relationship with country music star Keith Urban became another major chapter of her life. These were 2 very different relationships, happening at 2 very different points in Nicole's life. Yet both eventually ended. You might think that surviving one divorce would make the next one easier to understand. You might think experience would make heartbreak less frightening. But Nicole says that is not how it works. When she was asked whether her divorce from Tom had prepared her for the end of her marriage to Keith, she did not say she was stronger or better equipped this time. She did not claim that she knew what to expect. Instead, she said, "It's all new every time." And that simple statement may be the most honest thing she could have said. Because heartbreak is not a formula. You cannot experience one painful ending and suddenly become immune to another. Every relationship has its own history. Every person leaves a different mark. And when that relationship ends, you are dealing with more than the loss of a partner. You may also be losing routines, plans, memories, and a future you once believed was certain. That difference becomes especially important when you look at how young Nicole was when she married Tom Cruise. In 1990, Nicole was only 23 years old. Tom was already one of Hollywood's biggest stars. Their marriage instantly placed Nicole inside an enormous spotlight. Cameras followed them. Reporters wanted details about their lives. The public wanted to know what it was like to be married to one of the most famous actors in the world. But Nicole has explained that she was not thinking about any of that when she got married. She was in love. At 23, she suddenly found herself married to a global superstar. For many people, that kind of attention would have been overwhelming. But Nicole has recalled that the spotlight felt strangely natural to her. She was young, deeply in love, and focused on the relationship in front of her. She was not sitting down and calculating what marriage might do to her career. She was not asking whether becoming Tom Cruise's wife would make it harder to establish herself as an actress. Love was the priority. And there was a reason some people around her were worried. Nicole later recalled that she had been warned that marrying Tom could hurt her career. The concern was understandable. She was a young actress trying to build her own identity, and Tom Cruise was already an enormous celebrity. There was a real possibility that people would stop seeing Nicole Kidman as an individual performer and instead see her mainly as Tom Cruise's wife. For an actress trying to make her own mark, that could have been a serious problem. But Nicole did not let that warning change her decision. She was in love. She wanted to get married. And she was willing to accept whatever came with that choice. Looking back, that tells us something important about the woman she was at the time. She was not trying to control every part of her future. She was following her feelings and trusting that life would work itself out. But what happens when the person you build your early adulthood around is suddenly no longer part of your life? Nicole and Tom remained married until their divorce in 2001. By then, Nicole had experienced something very few people could understand. She had spent years inside one of the most famous marriages on the planet while simultaneously trying to establish herself as an individual. She had to deal with the attention that came with being Tom Cruise's wife while also proving that she was Nicole Kidman, an actress with her own talent, ambition, and identity. That experience shaped her. But it could not possibly tell her what would happen decades later. The Nicole who married Tom was still discovering who she was. She was 23. She was entering adulthood and Hollywood at the same time. The Nicole who later faced the end of her marriage to Keith Urban had lived through decades of change. She had built a major acting career. She had become a mother. She had experienced global fame from a completely different position. She had grown into a woman who knew herself far better than she had at 23. So when Nicole found love again, it was not simply a repeat of her first marriage. It was an entirely different chapter. In 2006, she married Keith Urban, the country music star. Over the years, their relationship became a nearly 2-decade-long marriage. Together, they built a family and raised 2 daughters, Sunday Rose and Faith Margaret. This was not Nicole entering marriage as a young actress trying to discover where she belonged. This was Nicole building a life she had already imagined and worked hard to create. By this point, Nicole was no longer defined by being somebody's wife. She had become a major star in her own right. Her career had developed. Her identity had become much more established. And then Keith became part of that world. For nearly 20 years, they shared a life filled with family, careers, private moments, public appearances, celebrations, difficult periods, and countless memories. Over time, that life became familiar. It became home. And that is where the second divorce becomes so different. When Nicole's marriage to Keith ended, she was not simply losing a relationship. She was confronting the collapse of a future she had imagined for years. She had spent 19 years building a life with Keith. She had pictured what the years ahead might look like. She had children, family routines, shared memories, and plans that were connected to that relationship. Then suddenly, the picture changed. Imagine knowing what you expect your life to look like, perhaps for years, and then discovering that the future you had planned no longer exists in the same form. That kind of uncertainty can be frightening. You are not just saying goodbye to what happened. You are also saying goodbye to what you thought would happen next. And that may explain why Nicole's second divorce could feel completely unfamiliar even though she had already survived one. Nicole has admitted that during the end of her relationship with Keith, she felt very fearful and deeply vulnerable. Those words are striking because they show a side of her that audiences rarely see. Nicole has spent decades living under bright Hollywood lights. She knows how to walk a red carpet. She knows how to face cameras. She knows how to answer uncomfortable questions while maintaining her composure. She has learned how to protect parts of herself while the public watches. But fame cannot protect someone from losing a marriage. It cannot make uncertainty disappear. It cannot tell you how to rebuild a life when the person you expected to share it with is no longer part of that future. Behind the confident public image was a person facing something deeply personal and painful. And despite all her previous experience, she still felt vulnerable. Why? Because experience does not erase attachment. It does not make the people we love replaceable. And it does not turn loss into something predictable. Nicole knew what divorce was. She had already experienced it. She knew that life could continue afterward. She knew that the headlines would eventually fade and that she would have to keep living. But knowing all of that did not make this particular loss less painful. There was another important difference. Her first divorce happened when she was still relatively young. She was in her early 30s and had a large part of her adult life still ahead of her. She was still figuring out what she wanted. Her life after Tom was going to be shaped by experiences she had not yet had. The ending was painful, but the future was still wide open in ways she could not fully see. With Keith, Nicole had reached a very different stage. She was older. She had children. She had spent years building a career and a family. Her life had developed a sense of structure. There were established routines and relationships. There were years of shared history. The future did not feel like an empty page. It felt like a continuation of a story already being written. Then the story changed. That is why her statement, "It's all new every time," matters so much. She was not saying that divorce is always exactly the same. She was saying the opposite. Every ending carries its own emotional weight. You can know the process and still be surprised by the feelings. You can have survived heartbreak before and still be scared when it happens again. You can understand that life will continue and still mourn the life you thought you were going to have. Nicole also seems to understand that moving forward does not mean pretending the pain never happened. It does not mean erasing the past or acting as though the relationship was unimportant. Moving forward means accepting what you cannot change and deciding what you want to do with the life that remains. And that is a much harder kind of strength. For Nicole, keeping her heart open appears to be part of that process. She has spoken about wanting to live a life where she can try new things, make mistakes, fail, get back up, and continue growing. That attitude is revealing. It suggests that she does not want fear to become the thing that defines her future. She has experienced love. She has experienced loss. But she does not seem willing to let loss convince her that she should stop living fully. And there may be an important difference between the younger Nicole and the woman she is now. The younger Nicole believed love was worth risking everything for. When people warned her that marriage to Tom might affect her career, she essentially decided that love mattered more. The older Nicole has learned something more complicated. Love can be worth everything, and still not last forever. A relationship can be deeply meaningful and still reach an ending. A future can feel certain and still change. That realization does not make love less valuable. If anything, it may make it more meaningful. Nicole's family also remains a central part of this story. Her children connect different chapters of her life. She shares Bella and Connor with Tom Cruise, and Sunday Rose and Faith Margaret with Keith Urban. Whatever happens between adults, those family bonds continue. That means the end of a marriage is never simply the end of a private relationship. There are children, routines, memories, and relationships that continue long after two people decide they can no longer remain married. That can make change even more complicated. A person cannot simply close a door and pretend everything behind it disappeared. Parts of the past remain connected to the present. Nicole appears to understand that reality. Rather than allowing divorce to become the only story people tell about her, she has focused on what comes next. But what does next actually look like when you do not know what the future holds? That may be one of the hardest questions Nicole is facing. After 19 years with Keith, the future she once pictured has changed. She cannot simply pull out an old plan and follow it. She has to imagine something new. And imagining something new can be difficult when the old future felt so familiar. Still, Nicole seems determined not to let fear close her off. She has talked about staying open to life, trying new things, accepting mistakes, and finding the strength to get back up. There is something quietly powerful about that attitude. She is not claiming that everything is fine. She is not pretending that change does not hurt. She is saying that pain does not have to be the end of the story.